What's going on, guys? We are back and we are live for this WWE SummerSlam Saturday, WWE SummerSlam Night 1 post-show, because we have a lot to talk about. We have a brand new WWE champion. His name is not a WWE World Heavyweight Champion. His name is not Gunther. His name is not CM Punk. His name is Seth freaking Rollins. That is right. Rollins, not with the heist of the century this time. Of course, he did the heist of the century at WrestleMania 31 back in 2015. This time with what Michael Cole is calling the ruse of the century. The ruse of the century, as Rollins is the brand new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. As is always the case with these post shows, we're going to start with how the show ended, as per usual, to discuss the initial reactions to all of it. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, guys. As you can see right there, we are just 4 subscribers away from 23,500 on that road to 25k in 2025. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Join the ever-expanding WNU, that being the Wrestle News universe. Let's get straight into what we just saw. We have a brand new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Night 1 of SummerSlam was main evented by CM Punk versus Gunther, but it was neither man who ended up the World Heavyweight Champion when all was said and done. First of all, big up to Jamie in the chat, as is always the case. Jamie is, that was my reaction when I saw that £20 super chat come in there from Jamie. Big up to you. One of our members, one of our moderators, I think holds the title of Chief Hater / Supporter. Jamie's always involved. He's top class. Has dropped the £20 super chat. Honestly, Jamie, your generosity knows no bounds. That is absolutely amazing. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Again, we're a small channel, so that really does go a long way to bringing you streams, watch-alongs, post-shows just like this. As Austin Baker says there in the chat, welcome in. Drop a like on the way in, absolutely. Osama says, enjoyed the show. Fantastic main event. Let me know, as always, your thoughts on the show, on the main event, whilst you click the like button and subscribe. In terms of an overall show, and again, we will talk about the main event specifically first and then work our way through chronologically. But just before we get to the main event, in terms of an overall show, as is always the case sometimes with these kind of split shows now, when you've got, it's a bit like with WrestleMania, isn't it? This was the first ever 2-night WWE SummerSlam. When you've got shows that are split across 2 nights, the content is always going to be watered down to some point, isn't it? And I think we felt that at different points this evening, where you go, does that match really warrant to be on a SummerSlam? A bit like with Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross. You go, is that really a SummerSlam match? Even the Women's Championship match, very short, a bit of a mixed bag. The tag match of the opener, it's a good match, but is that really enough to open up a SummerSlam? Is that kind of like a match you would rather see on maybe like a Payback or a Backlash? That kind of thing. Is that really SummerSlam? But it was highlighted with some really memorable moments this evening. A Jelly Roll match, a celebrity match that I think absolutely delivered, and a rare outcome where the celebrity doesn't win. And I think, again, that was the right call. A main event which went over 30 minutes, and I really think delivered. I think CM Punk and Gunther put on a fantastic main event, even without the cash-in stuff that happened after that. I think Gunther and CM Punk told a fantastic story. Just beat the holy hell out of each other for over half an hour in some sweltering heat. Very old school match with some old school references in there, some very much Bret Hart references. Shocker, I know, with CM Punk. And then a post-main event angle, which, I think most people saw coming. I think most people saw the Seth Rollins cash-in coming. The moment the reports came out to suggest that the whole thing was a work, this is kind of the thing, and I don't know. Obviously, I'm not watching the SummerSlam post show that WWE are doing right now. I would think this is how the story goes with Seth Rollins and this whole thing. According to the reports anyway, and I do believe this to be accurate. According to the reports, going into that Saturday night's main event match for Seth Rollins against LA Knight, Seth Rollins was legitimately injured. He legitimately had a knee injury. It wasn't a bad knee injury. Just because he was legitimately injured doesn't mean it was severe, doesn't mean he had to have surgery, doesn't mean he was going to miss months of action. It just meant he had an injury. And I think the thought process was, by Rollins, by Heyman, by Paul Levesque, by WWE Creative, was, well, I've got this injury at the moment. I'm going to be out for a couple of weeks. You know, when was this? This was on sort of 12th of July, because was it the same day as All in Texas? It was that Saturday night's main event, wasn't it? So that's what, about 3 weeks ago? 3-ish weeks ago. 3-4 weeks. And I think probably the discussion was, I've hurt my knee. I'll be fine for SummerSlam. I might not be able to work the show, as in have a match, because reportedly there might have been plans for Rollins to face Roman Reigns at the show, which again would make more sense with, you know, Roman versus Rollins on this show would have been much, much bigger, wouldn't it? And maybe it was a case of, yeah, I'm hurt, but I'm not hurt. I'll be fine, but I don't know if I'll be able to work a match, you know, in this a few weeks' time. And I think they probably thought, okay, right, then let's do an injury angle. And that will mean when you cash in, people won't expect it. But in the spirit, I guess, of WWE Unreal dropping on Netflix, they went, if this were legitimate, if Rollins legitimately got hurt in a match, what would we do? And they went through it and went, well, if he legitimately got hurt, he would go to a corner, the referee would talk to me, and I'd say I'm hurt, I've hurt myself, and then I would talk to LA Knight, or the referee would talk to LA Knight and say, hit your finish, get out of there, go home, Rollins is hurt. So that's what they did. They did what would happen in that scenario. And when it comes to Rollins, he's been walking around on crutches and he's had a brace on his knee because legitimately he was injured. He was injured. He was hurt. He did have an injury. But as is the case with pro wrestling, I think maybe WWE tried to get too cute with keeping surprises close to the chest, close to the vest on this one, because they did it earlier this year and they documented it again in WWE Unreal. That's just come out. When they had the shock heel turn of John Cena earlier this year at Elimination Chamber, who knew? Triple H said it was a very small group of people knew. I knew, The Rock knew, Cody knew, John Cena knew, and I think Travis Scott knew, and pretty much nobody else knew that's what we were going to do. It's only a very, very small circle of people knew that this was going to happen. This was not that. This was not that, because whilst they managed to surprise everyone, and they did false things by putting the John Cena segment initially in the middle of the show, or the Cody and Rock segment rather in the middle of the show, and then it was moved around and to try and again fool people, to try and throw people off that this wasn't going to happen and this, that and the other. This time around, they didn't fool people. Most people, you heard it, you heard it in the stadium, in MetLife. People expected Seth to cash in, to the point that when he came out, obviously it was a big reaction, but it was like, right, here we go. They played it, I think, very obvious. Punk, when he won the title, you visibly saw Michael Cole sort of going like this, telling Wade Barrett and others, you know, sit it out, lay out, because you've got something's going to happen. There was no commentary for the longest time, so you knew that was going to happen. And then, of course, I think there are holes you can pick in that too. Namely, of course, you can pick the hole in, well, earlier on in the evening, the show was opened by Roman Reigns and Jey Uso facing off against Seth Rollins' faction members in Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. They won that match. Why would Roman Reigns, with everything that's been done to him by Paul Heyman and by Seth Rollins, why would Roman Reigns allow that to happen in kayfabe? Would he not stop that from happening? Would he not come out? Would he not run to the ring? Had he already left the stadium? Are they going to try and explain that? Have they already explained that? Because if he's in MetLife, surely he would come down to the ring. Granted, it's a big stadium. You could say, well, he was on the other side of the stadium. He just couldn't get there in time. That's why. Maybe that's a story they tell tomorrow. But I think that is maybe a plot hole they'd have to tie up. It says to me as well that Rollins versus Punk is happening again at some point for the World Championship. Is it happening as soon as Clash in Paris? Or are they saving it for later on in the year? Whether it's Survivor Series, or they just wait all the way to WrestleMania next year in Vegas, and that's when Punk beats Rollins. Of course, initially, CM Punk versus Seth Rollins was set for a WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was set at WrestleMania 40. Punk was injured, so they had to wait for a while to do it. Maybe they're going to have their WrestleMania match next year. But are there other matches that you want to see instead? I'm not sure. So in terms of, I think you've got to grade it in different parts. In terms of the match between Punk and Gunther, obviously match of the night. I don't think that was hard because I don't think there was a huge amount of standout matches. There were some good matches, but clearly match of the night. They got a lot of time. They deserved a lot of time. I think if you put Gunther and CM Punk in the same ring, they're always going to deliver. It's almost impossible for them to put out a stinker. And I do think actually they probably called quite a lot of it in the ring. They were talking to each other a lot in there. And they just had an old school match. Gunther got colour, which I didn't expect as well. And I think they protected Gunther very well. Gunther in that match, because what kind of gets lost in all of this is what happens next with Gunther. But actually, you think about it, he had a match where, yes, he does get beat clean, but he was bloodied and he got hit with 2 GTSs. You're pretty protected from that point of view. So what happens with him next, I'm not sure. I mean, look at the catalogue of matches he's had this year as well. He faced Jey Uso at a match at WrestleMania that I don't think delivered. Then he had a match against Pat McAfee at Backlash, which I think was better than it had any business being. Then he faced, wins the title back against Jey Uso on Raw, right decision. Then he faces Goldberg in Goldberg's retirement match at Saturday Night's Main Event, which once again was way better than I think had any business in being too. And now he puts on a classic at SummerSlam. I mean, just what a top wrestler Gunther is. And maybe that's what happens coming out of this as well. Seth is the champion, and maybe they don't want to do Seth versus Punk straight away. Maybe they have a situation where Punk is going to feud with Gunther for a little while, and they're going to go down that route. I'm not sure. But in terms of a finish with the Rollins cash in and what have you, look, they've always been building to this ever since Rollins won the Money in the Bank briefcase. And before that, to be honest, ever since Rollins won that main event of WrestleMania. Ever since Rollins won that first night of WrestleMania, no one really expected him to win that match. People thought it was going to either be Reigns or Punk was going to come out on top. Nobody expected it to be Rollins. And that was a big thing of, right, this next wave or this next chapter of storytelling is going to be with CM Punk not being front and center, Roman Reigns not being front and center. It's going to be with Seth Rollins front and center on Raw, and we're going to have this faction, and we're going to get over Bron Breakker, we're going to get over Bronson Reed. They're going to be 2 big stars that spin out of this. Now, I think you could have a really good debate about whether or not that's worked on Raw, whether that whole storyline leaves a lot to be desired, whether the group still doesn't even have a name, does it? I don't think. I thought at one point it was going to be called The Vision, but I don't think it is. Maybe they can't get the trademark for that. Maybe that's quite Marvel-ish. I don't know. So in terms of the post-match, I think it was quite predictable. I think most people expected it. I think from the longest time, people knew that was a work. The longest it remained as, it's legitimate, I think was maybe 24, 48 hours. But I do think the reporting was pretty accurate on that one. And people that did report that, I think, again, do deserve to be recognised. But in terms of a match, I think it was a match that absolutely delivered, and it was a great one. What's next for everyone? I don't know. I really don't know. I think, as Austin says there in the chat, we need a draft as soon as possible. There had been rumours, hadn't there, after SummerSlam we would get one. I would agree with you, but then also I say, what does a draft mean anymore for WWE? The brand split sometimes is implemented, sometimes isn't implemented. Sometimes it's a hard and fast brand split. Sometimes it isn't. So I would agree with you if they kept the brand separate, but a lot of the time they don't. So it's difficult to say. Would Punk be better off on SmackDown and Raw? Well, what does it mean? Does it? Again, who does he face off against? He faced Cena. He's already just faced it. I don't know. I'm not sure with that one. So. Yeah, what else people saying in? Isaac says SummerSlam sucks. Seth's cashing was the only good thing. JR says not watched it yet, but crazy pop-up spoiler hat. Still love Owen. Sometimes with the thumbnail, sometimes I get that a lot. They go, you spoiled it, but unfortunately, it's one of those ones that if a live event has happened, you're always in danger being on the internet, aren't you? That's why they say if you want to avoid. I used to do it when I grew up. When I was going to school. And wrestling was on the night before, I just couldn't go online. I couldn't go on a website. I couldn't go on WWE.com. I couldn't go on social media. I couldn't go on YouTube because it would be there. You have to just kind of avoid it, don't you? Because it kind of is what it is, part of the game. It's the same with football. Sometimes United V, we put scores in the title. So we'll say Man United 2, this team won, and it'd be like, don't put the scores on the titles, it's a spoiler, and you sort of have to go, well, it's happened. I mean, if it's happened, you can't be like WWE. So all over WWE's Twitter at the moment, it'll be all the results. You can't say, don't do that. Don't put the spoilers up there. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of those ones. We've got close to 80 people watching, which is fantastic, guys. If you haven't already, click the like button. We're at 30 likes, so see if we can get it to 50. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe as well. We're 3 subscribers away from 23,500. So yes, if you haven't already, subscribe as we get closer and closer to the 25k in 2025. The show began with a tag team match, which was Roman Reigns and Jey Uso defeating Bron Breakker and Big Bronson Reed. Now, there is some concern coming out of this match that Bron Breakker might be hurt. He was spotted limping to the back after this match was done. Now, he was in the ring with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman and Bronson Reed to close the show. It did look like, he had his knee pad down and he was walking a bit gingerly on it. We'll have to wait and see. As far as the match, I mean, I understand why they had Roman and Uso win, partly because they wanted to be like, oh, see, look, the heels, it's not their luck tonight. They're not going to win, so don't even think about them coming back out later on, because Rollins is injured and it's all terrible for that group right now. But I think if you wanted to put over Bron Breakker, and assuming that Roman Reigns is going to go on hiatus again to film Street Fighter, or just because he's got limited dates, I'd have had Bron Breakker spear and pin Roman Reigns. Keep him off television for ages, maybe until WrestleMania season, something like that. Have Roman versus Bron Breakker in a big match at WrestleMania. There was a scary moment in the match, which you can see right there, where Roman Reigns did a big dive and he basically missed everyone at ringside. It was over the top of Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker and sort of landed on the outside, which was a rough and scary landing. There's a moment in there where Bron Breakker's about to hit a spear on Jey Uso. Roman takes the spear for his cousin, so they're definitely on the same page now. And in the end, Uso hits the Uso splash on Bronson Reed, gets the 1, 2, 3. It was a fine opener. It was about 21 minutes in length. I would have gone with the different finish of having Bron Breakker pin Roman, because I think if you're all in on him, you're all in on him, and that tells a better story of, yeah, this guy's like surpassing you. Look, he pinned you in that match, and come back at WrestleMania, do the match at WrestleMania, put him over again. What you got nothing to lose. You're Roman Reigns. You're competing in an opening match at this point. What are you going to lose? So I understand why they had the baby faces win in that regard. Was it necessarily the right call? I suppose to try and once again throw him off the scent, maybe. But I don't know if I'd have gone with that outcome, it must be said. Next up, we have brand new Women's Tag Team Champions, which isn't too much of a surprise. Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss defeat the Judgment Day, that being Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez. Match was fine. I expected a title change here because I think WWE probably just feels like we've just done something actually with Charlotte that actually works, which they found incapable. They haven't been able to do that since she came back from injury earlier this year at the Rumble. They, for some reason, I mean, it's different regimes now, but this regime fell into the same trap that the old regime fell into with WWE, which is the storyline with Charlotte Flair is, her character is, I win the championship. If I don't, I'm not on TV. I'll go away, then I'll come back, then I'll win the championship. That's the character. And you would have thought like that with Triple H now not in charge, and Vince McMahon not in charge. Oh, you would have understood that that's what fans actually resented about Charlotte Flair, which is she just comes back and wins, and they want to see other people win. They don't, and particularly if the same person wins over and over and over and over again, it gets boring, and the crowd resent that. And it's not even the performer's fault. They're not booking the matches, but they start to resent the performer like it's their fault. That's the weird world of wrestling. And that's what happened with Charlotte this year. She came back, won the Rumble, and people are like, oh, great. Going into WrestleMania, she's going to win the Women's Championship, is she again? Because she wins everything. And then the feud with Tiffany Stratton wasn't amazing going in to WrestleMania as it was. And, the crowd turned and they booed Charlotte. And it sucked for her. And she obviously was very emotional about it. She wrote the piece in the Players Tribune. And you felt bad for her and sympathised with her. And wouldn't you know it, by not including Charlotte Flair in a Women's Championship program, go after the Women's Tag Team title, go after the US championship or something instead. It doesn't have to be the world champion all the time. And the crowd respond to it because they like Charlotte Flair. They like the matches. She puts on good matches. And the tag team with Alexa Bliss, they like Alexa Bliss. And by having them being women's tag team champions, they can appear on both shows. You can keep them in the mix. And it just makes sense. Worked, helped the tag team division out. So I think it was the right call to have them win the titles. What it means for the Judgment Day? Nothing. Because the Judgment Day multiple times have held all the championships and then held no championships. They just keep, they just, I think Triple H feels like he needs them to format a Raw. I don't think he's formatted a Raw without having the Judgment Day at his disposal. Because that's why he builds the show around whoever's in the Judgment Day most of the time, whether it's main event scenes or just filling out the rest of the show. So them losing the tag titles, I don't think it says anything about their future. I think it's just more a case of now Flair and Bliss can be on all of the shows. Next up was Sami Zayn versus Karrion Kross. Now, going into this one, of course, there's been so much talk and so much detail about Karrion Kross's future. Is Karrion Kross staying with WWE? His contract expires in August. He's been telling everyone they haven't even approached me for a new contract. Me and Scarlett haven't signed a new contract. As of things now, nothing's changed. But then people point out to, well, look, he worked Saudi. He worked Night of Champions. Now he's working SummerSlam. Surely that wouldn't happen to a guy that's about to leave the company. But the match he had with Sami Zayn kind of felt like he maybe did. He maybe did work his final match with the company because he lost. Clean as a whistle in the middle of the ring. The story, once again, is I'm telling you, Sami Zayn, you're going to be a bad guy and you're going to turn heel and you're not this good guy, which again I think is kind of ludicrous because Sami Zayn's been a heel in WWE. In fact, he's probably had some of the best success of his career as a heel in WWE, winning multiple Intercontinental Championships as a heel in WWE. So this idea of he's terrible, he's the white as white meat baby faces is not true. But the stipulation was, if Kross wins, Sami has to admit that Kross was right and he's not a good person. And if Zayn won, Kross had to admit that he was wrong about Zayn. He didn't. Nothing really happened. There was a bit of a nod after the match of like, oh, maybe they'll do it on Raw on Monday. I'm not sure. But maybe Karrion Kross is leaving. Which I know there's this groundswell of support behind Karrion Kross, and he's got himself over with the character and his social media promos and some of the promos he's done on the show, and obviously the promo he did after WrestleMania. And maybe I'm off on this one, yeah? Maybe I'm off on this one. Maybe I'm missing something here. But I don't know about Karrion Kross, I think that sometimes I think social media and the internet falls in with a specific wrestler for a period of time and they get outraged that this person isn't being used. They need to be used properly or they've been hard done by. And actually, you have to discuss whether the talent is good enough to be in that spot. Great example. Where was Ron Killings on this show? Where was R-Truth? The same R-Truth that everyone was livid about. He got fired early this year. It's a travesty. WWE. Awful. They've got rid of Ron Killings. How can they do this to R-Truth? He's entertained me for years. I can't believe they didn't carry on his contract. It's a joke. Outrage. Hashtag we want truth. Chants, we want truth. Bring back truth. So they do. They brought him back at Money in the Bank. And he's not going to be R-Truth anymore. He's going to be Ron Killings. And then everyone went quiet. And they're still not using him. They brought him back. They gave him a contract. They gave him money. Good for Ron. He had a connection with the people that resonated enough to get his job back. But he's still not doing anything. They're using him just as much as they were before, which is zero. And guess what? There is no outrage. That same level of outrage is gone. It doesn't exist. And when it comes to Karrion Kross, I feel like it'll probably be the same thing. I feel like Karrion Kross is just the kind of... There's always someone they're not using, or there's always someone that people are pissed off isn't being used properly, and there always will be, because people have their favourites and booking committees have their favourites. It's always been the way. But I think with Karrion Kross, I think the role he's probably in at the moment is probably the best role for him, which is, mid-card heel, interesting character, can get a reaction from the crowd. But do I see a main event in shows? No. I think his in-ring work's okay. Not amazing, but it's okay. And I think the character kind of has a ceiling. To be honest, I watched this match and went, was this really necessary to be on the show? Probably not. Probably not really. Now, will he end up sticking around some new contract? I think they'll make him an offer. Whether or not they have or haven't already, I don't know. But if he left WWE and went elsewhere, would he move the needle or do really well elsewhere? I don't think so either. If I was his friend or someone who advised him on it, I would say, when they put a contract in front of you, I would sign it. I would sign it because I don't, you're not being used all the time, but you do have popularity here. Just go with it. That's what I would say. But the match itself, not really that much about it. Women's Championship match was next. Tiffany Stratton defeats Jade Cargill in the shortest match on the show, 7 minutes. And there really ain't that much to talk about here. Tiffany Stratton retains. I think probably the most surprising thing is that Jade Cargill got pinned clean as a whistle in the middle of the ring. Prettiest moonsault ever. 1, 2, 3. That's it. With Jade, it's Jade matches, isn't it? I mean, we know she's... I don't even know if we can say she's green at this point because she's been working, since 2021? Or late 2020, 2021? Pandemic era of AEW. So she's got nearly half a decade under her belt now. So I don't even know if you can say, she's green, because she's not. I don't think you can go, Jade's green. She's not green anymore. She's been wrestling for quite a long time, actually. She's just not great in the ring. And that's not even being super harsh on her. She's just not amazing in the ring. The matches aren't going to be amazing. She's got a great look. She's not the best talker, but she has a great look. She has a presence. I think she does have crossover appeal. But as an in-ring worker, she's limited. And that's why they have these matches be short. Because she's not going to do 15, 20-minute classics. And that's fine, because not everyone can do that. I think it's probably the right move, having Tiffany win. But I don't know what that means for Jade Cargill going forward. I mean, she won Queen of the Ring. She had the big shot. I think with those type of workers, if they're limited and it's all on the presentation and the power game, I feel like you have to kind of go all in with them or not. So I don't know now. What is Jade Cargill's ceiling in WWE? First time she had a women's championship match in a featured match at SummerSlam, she lost clean in the middle of the ring. If you're going to build her up, I suppose you probably have a win, but I still think this is probably the right outcome. As far as who Tiffany Stratton faces now, that's another really good question. I don't know too. I don't know who Tiffany Stratton faces next. Once again, maybe you need a draft. Maybe get Bayley over to SmackDown. Have her do something. Lord knows she's left off a very big show. Bayley versus Tiffany Stratton, perhaps. But the match itself wasn't that much to write home about. She did hit Jade, but the feet were on the ropes, and that was about it. Now, we had the celebrity match, a match a lot of people were interested in, which was the WWE in-ring debut of Jelly Roll, teaming up with Randy Orton against Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. And I must say, huge credit into everyone who participated in this match, because this match absolutely delivered. Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul win after Drew McIntyre hits Jelly Roll with the Claymore, and then Logan Paul hits the splash off the top rope, which I am quite pleased by, because so often the celebrity wins. And it does, talk about a night about integrity of wrestling and about kayfabe. It's always one of those suspending disbelief moments, isn't it? When you go, what, so this celebrity who's just learnt wrestling can beat someone who's been wrestling for 10 years, 15 years? Bullshit. And it is always a bit bullshit, but it's just the way it is in pro wrestling. So I was kind of glad actually to see the celebrity lose. I think Jelly Roll, look, as a former big guy myself, as a former fat man, and hopefully forever stay no longer be a fat man again. I will credit him for losing over 200 pounds, stepping in there in front of 50-odd thousand people, millions of people around the world, and putting the money where your mouth is, and taking bumps. He's 40 as well. So I will always, anyone that steps in the ropes, I will give him huge credit for. I'm not one of those people that's like, I don't see celebrities, what do they offer? Of course they offer something, that's why they're there. And I think for the obviously limited training he had, I thought he did fine. The bump he took through the table from Logan Paul is genuinely one of the damnedest announce table spots I think I've ever seen, because the way there's a couple things in it. One, the frog splash that Logan Paul does from the ring post to the outside. I mean, the athleticism alone. I know we've seen that spot a million times, where it's Logan Paul, Shane McMahon, whoever. We've seen do it. But the athleticism and how far he goes is ridiculous, Logan Paul. And then the bump that Jelly Roll takes through the table, it's rough. You see that table, they've got the different style announce tables now, and it just exploded. The thing literally exploded, and it was a rough bump. So I give him credit for that, give Logan Paul huge credit. But again, I think the outcome was the right one. And it must be said, speaking of sort of celebrity involvement, celebrity wrestlers, Logan Paul, I think he's more than just a celebrity wrestler at this point. Now, I know Bad Bunny called himself the best celebrity wrestler. Bad Bunny's had 2 matches. Logan Paul's had significantly more than that at this point. But the improvement from him is really extraordinary. And I know these matches are laid out way ahead of time, and there's a lot of rehearsal that goes into this and a lot of preparation. It's not like Logan's in there calling it on the fly. But he was absolutely terrific in this match. He really, really was. Obviously gets the 1, 2, 3, but the splash through the table, his work, he just looks the part. He really looks the part, and he delivers in the ring. Obviously, he's got the following, and he can talk. So I mean, huge credit. There's a reason. Obviously, look, he's been paired with some fantastic people, whether it's having matches against AJ Styles at WrestleMania, or Randy Orton, or Kevin Owens, or Cody Rhodes, LA Knight, you name it. But he's a worker. You can criticize him for all he wants, and it's not always there, and that's true. But hey, he was terrific in this match, absolutely terrific. So I do give him huge credit for that one. And then, of course, finally we have that World Championship match that we spoke about earlier on. CM Punk defeating Gunther, but Seth Rollins cashing in, becoming the brand new WWE World Heavyweight Champion in the process. What it means for all 3 men? Well, I would think on Raw, Punk probably tries to confront Rollins. Does that lead to an immediate match for them at Clash at Paris? I don't know. I just don't think WWE would go that quickly with it. Maybe I wouldn't be shocked if we see a scenario whereby maybe it's Gunther versus Rollins at Clash in Paris, perhaps. Gunther's a European wrestler as well. It's a show in Europe. And they might have Gunther versus Rollins, and maybe Punk gets involved. I think they're going to try and put off Punk and Rollins as long as they can. Whether or not they can last until WrestleMania, I don't know. That is a long time. And it depends, maybe, I suppose, if they do a draft, what happens, etc. But I think that might be the plan. So we shall see. But there you go, guys. That was SummerSlam Night 1 here at WrestleNews 365. Really appreciate everyone that's tuned in this evening. Once again, we will be live tomorrow for WWE SummerSlam Night 2 for a watch-along and a post-show. And fingers crossed, if I stay alive and awake, I'll also be live for Raw, the Raw after SummerSlam. We'll see how that goes, though. Tomorrow, I'm going to be streaming across 2 channels. I'm going to be live on United View for Manchester United versus Everton. And then once SummerSlam starts, just before 11 o'clock, I'll be live on WrestleNews 365. I'll be live at 2 places at once. And it's going to be a madness. It's going to be an absolute madness. So there you go. I appreciate everyone for tuning in, as always. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'm out of here. Peace.